Have you ever wondered how medications that you take to feel better are created and approved? Also, what prescription medications can lead to addiction and long-term effects? In this episode, I'll be discussing the in-depth and different types of medications commonly prescribed by doctors. The prescription drugs being used by the public are most commonly used, according to the NIDA of teens, are opioids, depressants, and stimulants. The opioids nicknames and names consist of happy pills, hillbilly heroin, CO, oxy, oxycodone, perks, and Vikes. Opioids are mainly prescribed after major surgeries for pain relief. In many cases, people with pre-existing health conditions such as ADHD, alcoholism, etc., can increase the chance of becoming addicted to the medications and lead to heroin or other drug addictions as well. The effects of high doses of opioids can cause breathing problems, overdosage, and sometimes even death for long-term effects. Most commonly used are depressants, and their slang names are bars, candy, downers, reds, redbirds, sleeping pills, etc. Depressants are for people with anxiety, depression, insomnia, etc. People using depressants are a higher chance of drug abuse with adding any use of alcohol or any type of other drugs as opioids as well. Also, a high dosage can cause seizures for long-term effects, an overdose, and even death in some situations. The stimulants used are beanies, black beauties, hearts, rose, Skippy, the smart drug, speed, Adderall, and other prescription drugs along the line with ADHD use. These drugs are most commonly to wind up back on the streets in the market. These drugs are to make you hyper and aware of your environment. Stimulants are the most highly addictive drug. The effects stimulants will have: extreme high temperatures, your heart rate will go up, and paranoia. The heart rate will cause an OD sometimes in many cases. Another is abuse of Adderall and Rital. So, you may be wondering how dangerous this medication becomes. A regular prescribed medication for the public, then, well, let's look at the pharmaceutical companies and their process of medication and trials. This is a simple description of how medications are created. Potential drugs will go through the process of research, with trials seeing the rate of success, side effects, failures, etc. Then they will meet the list of requirements for the FDA, which stands for Food and Drug Administration. After meeting the requirements, they will publish the research journals. These journals are edited to not meeting the requirements in some parts. These journals are edited to not show the failures of the trials, but are still required to list all the side effects due to legal reasons. The number of failures versus the rate of success can show that the medication is falsely advertised, leading patients and doctors on. The style of editing the journals is called fake fix, according to Dr. Goldenberg research and his personal experience prescribing drugs to patients. Goldenberg had been prescribing Reboxetine to a few of his patients after researching the medication and reading the published journals. He made an educated choice for his patients. Later down the road, his patients were experiencing out-of-norm effects. He went back and found the original journals that were never published. These journals had a failure rate that was much higher than the previous ones. Certain parts of the journal had been cut out and altered, appealing to customers and doctors. This transition to things you need to know and be aware of prescription drugs that you may be taking. Prescription medication is broken up into 3 categories commonly known, as I mentioned before: a depressant, opioid, stimulants. For basic pain relievers to ADHD medication and antidepressants, you can educate yourself before taking them. Know your drug history and ask your doctors questions if you're curious, or even if you think you may be addicted. Thank you for listening to my podcast, presented by Emily White.